front-end channel. So I talked with your admin and we decided that it would be helpful for me to create this, hopefully, short lecture showing you visually how front end works in terms of HTML, CSS, and if I have time, I can do a little bit of JavaScript, okay? Because many of you are beginners. Some of you already have this experience. And so if that's you, this may not be as helpful. But for many of you, this is your first exposure to anything HTML or CSS. And I was concerned that for those of you for which that is the case, it's becoming more of a cramming than an understanding. And so I wanted to make this lecture to show you just a little bit. It's not going to be very exhaustive because HTML, even on its own, is huge. But I am going to build I mean, I guess you watch me doing it. It's not like it's live, but you watch me doing it in real time. I'm going to build a very simple website. And the goal of this video is just to demonstrate how these HTML tags, how these CSS properties, and if we have time, JavaScript, how they work together to create a website. Okay? And so the goal of this is not, I'm not teaching you how to code. Please don't memorize anything I'm doing. This is a visual aid, okay? So that when you are now reading your CSS or when you are studying your HTML, you have sort of like a visual picture of how these things work together. So it doesn't feel like you're cramming. Hopefully it will help you to actually understand what you are studying, okay? So that's the purpose of this. Don't forget, you are joining the school to learn these skills. So this is not actually going to be on the exam, okay? And I want to make that clear because I don't want anybody to be afraid or to be intimidated, okay? This is supposed to help you and support your study, all right? So let's get into it. Okay, so we have our, okay, so let me just explain what is happening here. This is our HTML file that I have open here, okay? And there are some other files that we'll get into, definitely the SCSS. Actually, let me open that now. Not SCSS, the CSS. Okay, and our CSS file is empty for now. So this is our CSS and this is our HTML file, okay? And I have a live representation of what we are building here. So whatever I build here, you're going to see it here, okay? So I hope that is helpful. And I hope the text is large enough for you to see easily. Okay, so let's start building, okay? I'm just going to build. Like I said, I'm not covering everything, okay? So there may be some things you are studying that you will not see here, all right? And that is on purpose because if I try to cover everything, this video will be 10 hours long, okay? So I'm going to build a very simple portfolio website. And as I go along, I will point out parts that I believe should be in your study notes. Okay. And I have the study, that is the website in your study kit. I have them open here, the HTML and the CSS, just to help me. Okay. All right. So let's start. It's going to be a very simple portfolio website. Let us start with the top section, okay? So this is a div tag that I'm creating, and it's going to be my top section. Now, in order for us to be able to style this, these elements later, that's where you put your classes and your ID, like you've been studying. Okay, so I'm going to give this an ID, and I'm going to call it header. Okay, sorry, this is supposed to be quotes. Okay, I'm going to call it header. So in my header, I want to have my image. So I want my picture. Okay, so this is image tag, and we indicate the location of the image by using source. And for my source, I don't have an image that is locally on my computer. So I'm going to grab a picture of myself from the internet and I'm going to put it in there. Okay. All right. So this is my picture. Okay. So this is a picture of myself on the internet. So I'm going to grab that. All right. So why don't we see what that looks like? Okay. So that's the only thing I've added that is visual on the website. So that's my picture, and you see it's really big. Okay. So we know that we can put a width attribute. I don't know if you've come across that. So the width attribute, and I'm going to make it 200 pixels. All right. So that it's not as big. And as you can see, it has automatically updated. All right. So that's my picture. All right. Now, underneath my picture, I want to introduce myself. So I am going to put an H1 tag, which is a heading tag. There are 6 heading tags, H1 to H6. So H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. Okay. And they all have different sizes. Okay. H1 being the largest and H6 being the smallest. Okay. So I'm going to use an H1 and I'm going to put my name. Okay. And I'm going to use an H2 to put my my job title. All right. All right. Forgive me. All right. So I save that and it's updating automatically, as you can see. Okay. All right. So this is HTML. This is HTML. I haven't written in any other file yet. Okay. This is HTML. All right. So that's my header. Okay. So for the rest of my website, my portfolio, I'm going to create another div and I'm going to give it an ID of main. Okay. So that's the rest of my content. Okay. Now I'm going to create a section that is like a summary of who I am. Okay. So I'm going to give it an ID of summary. The thing with ID is unique. If you use an ID, like an ID name someplace in the file, you can't repeat it because then you have some problems. So the thing with ID is ID per page is unique. If it's a separate page, another HTML page, you can reuse an ID, which really doesn't really make sense. But on the one page, IDs are unique, okay? When I start adding classes, then you will see how a class can be applied to multiple elements, okay? But an ID is unique. You only use an ID once. So this is unique header. I'm not going to use header anywhere else. I'm not going to use main anywhere else. I'm not going to use, okay? All right. So now for my summary, let me add a paragraph tag. And that's where I'm going to write about myself. Now, I'm not going to make it up here and waste time. So let me go to my portfolio page and let me just copy some text there. That's my actual portfolio page. Okay. All right. So I'm going to copy the text here. Okay. And when I save, it has updated. Okay. Now, this is just a paragraph. I think it would be helpful to have some kind of a heading, you know, letting people know what this section is. And so we can, I can say my summary. Okay. And I added that as an H3 tag. Okay. You see the differences. So this is H1 and this is H2 and this is H3. All right. Okay. Let's continue. So we are still building. So that was my summary. Let me create another section, and this actually will be, I think, maybe the last section because I don't want this to go too long. And I want to make sure I get to CSS. So let's call this section work. Okay. So this section is going to talk about a little bit about what I do. All right. So in this section, we are going to have like repeated, we're going to have some repeated blocks because each block is going to describe part of what I do. Okay. All right. So let's build it. So we're going to have a div. Okay. Meaning division, and that div, we're actually going to give it a class now. Okay. Not an ID. And the class is going to be, I'm going to call it work, what should I call it? Work tile. Let's call it work tile. Okay. Now we're going to have, let me see how many work, let me look at my portfolio. Okay, we have 5. Okay, so we're going to have 5 work tiles. Okay, so I'm going to copy it and paste for 5. Okay. Okay, now in each work tile, actually I shouldn't have done that. Let me build out one tile first and then I'll copy it. Okay. So in each work tile, we're going to have an image. Okay, and it's going to be an image of something. Okay, let's just say example.com. For now, we're going to replace them. Okay, so we're going to have an image sort of like representing what that work is, and then we are going to have let me make it a P. We are going to have like a description of the work. Okay, so work description, I think is good. Okay, so that is our tile. Okay, our work tile. So that is what I'm now going to duplicate because I want 5 of them. Okay, so 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, this is one of the beautiful things about front-end engineering is that you actually get to work on the part that people see. Okay, all right, so you can see my work descriptions here. Okay, and you know, the reason why you don't see any image, you know, it's broken. This is like an indicator that the image tag is broken. Is because example.com is not an image. Okay, but we'll replace that later. All right, now in my work section, just like I did with summary, you see I gave summary a heading. I'm going to do the same thing for my work section. Okay, so I'm going to put a heading up here. Okay, now I am going to wrap all my work tiles in their own div to separate them from the heading that I just entered. Okay, and when we start on CSS, you'll see why I did that. Okay, so I'm going to give this an ID of work tiles, plural. Okay, not singular like the individuals down here. Okay, so I'm going to move this now into my work tiles div. And when we start with CSS, you'll see why I did that. Okay, all right, but nothing changes here. Okay, I was just rearranging the structure. All right, now why don't we end with, this is my work div. Okay, so why don't we end with a contact section, right? Because it's a portfolio. So I'm going to give it an ID, unique, and I'm going to say contact. Okay, and in the contact, why don't we use a paragraph saying I'm open to discussing work or tech community opportunities. Okay, let's leave it like that. And then I'm going to add a button here that hopefully, if there's time, we will do some JavaScript with it. Okay, so this button is going to say click to contact, click to email me. Okay, all right, and we can see it has already pre-populated, right? See, this is our button. Okay, and just like we did with the other sections, let's give it some kind of heading. Okay, all right, and we're going to say contact me. Okay, all right, good. This is our HTML, and you can see how it's represented here. Okay, HTML is like the structure of the website. Okay, you can think of HTML, if you think of a house, HTML is the bricks and the cement and the wood and the metal pipes. Okay, it's the physical structure of the house. Okay, all right, and I think that is enough for us. Now, like I told you, I didn't include all, so many different tags. I could have let's say in the work description, okay, let's have some lists, okay? So in our work description, let's include a list, an unordered list, okay? And in this unordered list, let's put maybe the skills that I'm using in each work, okay? So this is skill number 1, and I'm just going to do 2, okay? And this is skill number 2. I'm adding this just to have a little bit more variety of the HTML tags that I am using, okay? All right, so those are the skills, and let's copy that to the other work tiles, okay? Okay, so when I save that, we see that our HTML has updated with those lists, okay? So this is HTML, all right? And it looks pretty simple. So let's go into CSS. You know, CSS is where we beautify what we are looking at, okay? All right, so CSS, I know from your studies, CSS can be added to an HTML file in 3 different ways, okay? So you have inline styling, inline CSS, you have embedded CSS, and then you have external CSS file. So I'm going to show you the 3 ways, but to continue with the styling of our portfolio website, I'm going to rely on external file. Okay, now let's talk about the pros and cons of the 3 different types. With inline, well, let me do them first, and then and then we'll talk about that just real quick. So inline styling. So this is my summary. Okay, so let's say this summary up here. Okay, let's say my header. Sorry, I meant to say header. Let's say my header, I want my header color to be yellow, the background color. Okay, so I would come to the HTML element that is the header, okay? And I will add a style attribute, and then I will define the CSS property that I want to set, okay? So background color, and I will say yellow, okay? Now we see yellow. So this is inline styling, okay? Inline CSS. Inline CSS, the pros of inline CSS is you can make a quick change to a particular element without maybe having to go and find the file, the CSS file that has styling, you know, other styling for that element. If it's, you know, if it's a style that is only going to be related to that one element, you're not going to want to repeat it anywhere, then inline can be really quick. Okay. The other benefit of inline is it trumps all the other styles. Okay. So let me show you what I mean. With the embedded CSS, so let's do that. Embedded CSS, we put it in the head. Okay. We put it in the head section of our HTML file. We know that the head section doesn't show up on the page visually. It has what we call metadata, which is information about the website itself, but it's not information that is presented on the website. Let me show you what I mean. Let's add a title tag to our head section. And the title is what appears in the tab over here. Okay? You see where it says 127001. Okay, that is our tab, our browser tab. Whatever you put in the title in the head section will show up there. So let's call it my portfolio. Okay, and you see it changed. All right, it changed. It changed from the IP of this website on my local network. It changed from the IP to the value of title in my head section. Okay, so that is where we also put our embedded CSS. And to do that, we say style, and then we put our styles in there. Okay, so we want to set a different background color for our header section using embedded CSS. But we have a style, inline style here already. And I want to show you the priority given to the different CSS approaches. Okay, so to apply the background color using the embedded CSS, we first need to specify which element in the HTML do we want to apply this style to. And so from your study, you know that to specify an ID, you use a pound sign. I think they call it pound in Nigeria. In United States here, they call it hash. Okay, so we say pound header, okay, and then we open our curly brace and bracket, and then we say background color, and let's set it. Oh, okay, they've given me some colors here. This is unique to the software Visual Studio. You know, this might not happen in every code editor. Okay, let's pick this blue violet. Okay, all right. Now you see how I've saved my work, and you see how I set a background color for my header, but nothing changed. The reason is because inline CSS is considered more powerful than embedded. Okay, in terms of priority, rendering priority. Okay, so one of the benefits of inline is if it's just one element that is going to take the change, you can override whatever is in embedded or external by using an inline. Okay, so that's benefit. Disadvantages of inline is it is very, very difficult to maintain. Okay, it's difficult to maintain, and as the application gets bigger, it becomes harder and harder to remember where inline styles were applied. So in general, inline is not largely encouraged. You still see some people doing it. It has some uses, but by and large, we don't use inline for styling. Okay, now let me take away the inline style. And now the embedded CSS has been activated. Okay, because that higher priority inline CSS was deleted. Okay, so now this has taken priority. Okay, now let me show you how embedded CSS takes priority over external CSS, which is an external file. Okay, so this is our external file. So let's do the same thing we did here. I'm just going to copy the styling for header, and I'm going to put it in here, but I'm going to give it a different color. Let's give it green. Okay, all right, so I have saved my work. Okay, and we come here, there's no change. All right, now you might say, oh, of course there's no change because the embedded takes priority over the external. Well, let's get rid of the embedded. Okay, let's get rid of that and see if that makes any difference. The styling has disappeared. Okay, what's happening? Well, even though we have this external CSS, we haven't linked it to our HTML file. Okay, so we need to link it. We need to tell our HTML file that there's an external CSS file that needs to be applied to this HTML. Okay, and we do that in the head section by using the link tag. Okay, so link. Now I never know, I'll be honest with you, I never memorize how to write that link tag. So, you know, the thing about being a developer is you don't cram, because the internet is so rich with resources. So I typically don't cram what I don't need to cram. Okay, I learn what I need to learn, which is how to use it. But if I forget the syntax, I don't sweat it, because you can always look online. So this is the syntax for linking an external CSS file, or style sheet, like they called it. So let's copy and put that here. Okay, now we have to set the href, and we need to make sure that it is the same as our the name of our CSS external file, which is style. Okay, so I'm just going to say style. Okay, so now we have the green. Okay, so why don't we put back, and let me show you the priority now. let's put back our embedded CSS, and I can show you that it does indeed take priority. All right, it's blue violet. Okay, so even though we have it set in the external, the embedded takes priority over external. Embedded is a little better than inline in terms of maintainability, but it's still not as maintainable as external, because if you had multiple HTML pages, you would have to have multiple embedded style sections. You would have to, keep repeating yourself. Okay. Whereas with an external CSS file, all you have to do to have that CSS file applied to multiple HTML files is just to add the link to it. So this is a lot more maintainable, external files, than embedded. Okay, so let's get rid of embedded, and we're going to continue this little project using our external CSS. Okay, all right, so let's style our portfolio website a little bit. Okay, and I think, me personally, when I do front-end work, I do enjoy the JavaScript, but I think I enjoy CSS more because you get to be creative. Okay, so let's start. Let's start with our header, and we'll work our way down. Okay, we're still doing good on time. Now, I want to draw your attention to something. You see this white space around our header, and it actually goes all around the entire page, the entire web page. Okay, I'll prove it to you. Let's set the background, that is the entire body tag. Okay, I'm going to set a background color on the entire body tag because I want to prove to you that that white space is around the whole page. Okay, so let's go into our CSS, and we're going to say body. Okay, this is how in CSS, this is how we refer to HTML tags. There's no dot before it because it's not a class. There's no pound because it's not an ID, it's a tag. So when you want to style a tag, you just put the tag name. Okay, so I put body. So I'm going to give my body a background color of, let me make it something obvious. Let's make it coral. Okay. Okay, so you see I made the background coral, and you can see that space change color to the coral. There, that space is still there. Okay, now typically in front end, we consider that weird. Okay, we don't want spaces that we didn't put there. Okay, so we're going to take away that space by setting the margin and the padding of the body to 0. Okay, because natively the browser puts that there natively, but we want to take that away because it allows us more control over the spacing and the padding of our elements. Okay, so let me take away that background color because we do want our background color to be white, and we're going to set margin of the body equal to 0. Okay, so you have your property name, and then you have the value, just like you're learning. Okay, and we're going to set padding equal to 0. Okay, aha, you see what happened? That gap disappeared, and you see now everything is right at the edge of the browser. Okay, and that's actually what we want. All right, okay, let's continue styling. Okay, let's keep doing what we're doing. Okay, so I want to style now my header. Okay, now with my header, I would like my picture to be circular, okay, not square. And you see how the inside elements of the header are right at the edge of the header. I don't want that. I want there to be a padding, okay, around my header elements. And I also want my header elements to be in the center. And then I'm going to keep my background green, but I think I would like white color for my text, not black. Okay, so let's do that in CSS. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to set the padding on the inside, okay? Now, you know the padding attribute has 4 dimensions, okay? And it goes clockwise from the top, all right? So I'll show you what I mean. It has 4 dimensions. So the first dimension does the top padding, the second does the right, the third does the bottom, and the fourth does the left. So it's always clockwise. Same thing with margin. It's always clockwise. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to set the top padding. Let's set it 20 pixels. Okay. I'm going to set the right. Let's set it to 25 pixels. Okay. I'm going to set the bottom padding to the same 20 pixels, and I'm going to set the left to the same 25 pixels. Okay, I save that, and you see what happened. You see that space has come in. This space here is now 20, and this space to the left here is now 25. Okay, I don't think that's enough for me, so I'm going to double them. Okay, all right, I'm going to double them. Okay, aha, I think that looks better. Okay, all right, so we have our padding, and it is around our elements. Okay, because we saw how the internal elements shifted away from the edge, so that tells us that we now have padding there. Okay, all right. I'm not going to go into how you can, there's a shorthand. Yeah, there's a way you can write this in shorthand. I'm not going to go into that because this lecture is really just giving you a visual experience for what you've been learning. Okay, all right, now let's move our elements to the center. Okay, now there's 2 ways to do this. Okay, you can do it using the TextAlign property, and you can set it to center. Okay, and so what that does is it takes all the elements inside the element that you are styling, in this case our header, and it aligns all of them to the center. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Okay, I want to show you another way, because you may have come across this in your CSS study, display flex. Okay, flex box. All right, so let me comment that out. Commenting in CSS just means what you wrote is still there, but it's not active. Okay, you have made it inactive, so it doesn't show up. And I'll show you. You see how the elements shifted back to the left because I made the TextAlign inactive by making it a comment. Okay, and a comment, a CSS comment, is a / followed by a star, and then you end it with star /. Okay, now I'm going to center those elements again using display flex because I think it's in your study notes. All right, so display flex. Okay, now what display flex does is it makes the element adhere to flexbox arrangement. I'm not going to go deep into that. Okay, I just want to show you how to align using flex. And so we have display flex, and then I think we say column, how is it now? Let me look. Display flex, I think it's column direction, right? Flex direction. Okay, and I think flex direction is okay, I think that's what it is. Okay, all right, so flex direction. Okay, and I think if I say column, aha, okay, so what I did there is when you make an element a flex box by saying display flex, the default direction of the children in that element is horizontal. Okay, that's what you saw when I just had display flex. Okay, you see how it shifted everything. Everything is now arranged horizontally. In order to get back the vertical arrangement, I put what is called the flex direction. Don't memorize it. I'm just showing you the power of CSS. Please, I don't want you to think now you have to cram everything that Arit showed. Don't do that. Stick to your study guide. This is just to show you how it all comes together, okay? So by setting the flex direction as column, which is, a column is straight down, it now gave me back my straight down, okay? And then the property to now shift everything to the center is justify content center. Why is it not working? Okay, that's CSS. Flex direction. Oh, is it because I changed the flex direction? It's possible. Flex direction, justify content. Aligning items in a flex container, yes. Okay. Oh, okay. I think it's not. I think because I changed the flex direction, I can't use justify content. I have to use align content. I think is what it is. Yes? No? Why is this not working? This is strange. Flex direction column. Justify content should work. It's not working. Okay, I'm not going to waste time on that. Let's just go back to the TextAlign, okay? I just wanted to show you display flex because I know it is in your study guide. If I'm able to work that out, I might just make a short post in the Slack, okay? But don't worry about it. That's the life of software development. Sometimes you think something is going to work, it doesn't work, and then you troubleshoot. Okay, all right. So I have my that is it's centered. My header is looking more like what I want. Okay, now let's style the image. Okay, let's style the image. Now we have different images. Okay, we have my head image, but we also have our image for the work tiles. Now, let me actually change that because I want to show you, this is CSS we're talking about. So let me change those images. Let me open image in new tab, open image in new tab. I'm just grabbing images from my own portfolio because I don't have images in my local files that I can use, okay? So that's what I'm doing here. This is not part of, please, this is not part of what you are reading, oh, so don't give yourself work. Okay, all right, so I'm just going to put the image locations. So that's the first one. And then this is the second one, okay. I hope this is helping somebody. I hope this is helpful. This is the actual process of development, which you're going to learn after you get into the school. Okay. And I grab this. Okay, so I'm just grabbing my images. I want to grab these images because I want to show you how CSS allows you to limit your styling to particular elements. Okay, all right, so if we go back to our portfolio, woo, we see these huge images, right? Okay, and they are so big, and we're going to leave them big for now. Okay, all right, if you remember, my head image was also big, but we applied a width 200 pixels here, and we're going to take that out and we're going to take it into the CSS. Okay, all right, so I want to make my head image round. So in my CSS, I can go in here and I can say image, right? Because it's an image, image tag. So I can say image, and I can say it's the border radius. Okay, that's the CSS property to make the corners of an image round. Okay, and depending on what you set it to, it will now make it a circle. So to make it a circle, you say border radius of 50%. Okay. Now what happened? My head is a circle like I wanted, but every other image on the page is also a circle. Is that what I wanted? No. And so by only using the image tag, this CSS property has been applied to every image on the page. Okay, so how do I make sure that this is only applied to my head, my face picture? Well, if we go back to our HTML, we see that my face image is a child of the element with ID header. Okay, so what I can do is I can specify that I only want the image that is a child of header, or that is inside the ID header element. Okay, so to do that, in front of image, I will put header space. Okay, header space. That space says find header, and then under header, inside header, find the image tag. That's what that means. Okay, and as you can see, it has updated automatically. Now the other pictures are back to their square shape, and it's only my head that is a circle. Okay, so I know you've been learning that. Like I said, I want to show you visually how it works when you are actually using it to build. Okay, all right, so now my header is a circle. Now I want to change the color of my H1 and my H2. Okay, so to do that, right, I'm going to do the same thing. I could just put H1 and H2, but what if I use H1 and H2 elsewhere? I haven't at this point, but what if I did? But by putting, by writing the CSS to target only the headings in the header section, then I can make sure that it will only be applied to these two headings. Okay, so let's do that down here. So we say header, okay, and then we say now inside header, any H1, and then we want to do it for H2 as well. Okay, so I say comma. So now I want to define a CSS property for two different elements. Okay, so the first element is the H1 inside header, and the second is the H2 also inside header. So the way you do that in CSS is you can comma. Okay, you can comma it. So instead of doing this, I could do this if I wanted. Let me show you. I could do header space H1, then I can say color white. Okay, and you see how it changed it. Okay, so I can do this, and then I can also say header, I can also say header H2, okay, and I say color white as well, and it has changed. So this is fine, this works, but it's a little repetitive. Okay, so instead of doing it twice, I can use comma. Okay, I can copy that and I can say comma. Okay, so now I've applied color white to two different elements. Okay, and it still works. You see, our text is white. Okay, let's continue. Oh, excuse me, let me take a little drink. All right, so let's continue. I'm happy with my header. I want to move on to my summary. Okay, now as you can see, and let me change this. I said this is my work. I just saw that I didn't update that because I copied it. Okay, so this is my summary. Now you can see, summary is right at the edge, of the page. I want my summary to also be, I want the summary heading to be in the center, and I want my paragraph to stay how it is, but I don't like that it's stretching across the whole page. Okay, so let's use CSS to change that. So to target our H3, okay, to target it, we are going to use, now let's think about this, okay, because now I have this heading here, my summary, and I have another H3 heading, my work, and then I have a third one called contact me, and I would like all of them to be at the center. Okay, I want all of them to be at the center. The heading, this is the section, and the title of the section, the H3, I want it to be at the center. Okay, So how can I do that without, so let me show you how we could do it, okay? We could target the H3 under summary. So let's do that. Okay, all right, so we have our ID summary, okay, summary, and we specify we want the H3, and then we can say TextAlign center, okay? And that has centered our summary. And now I want to also center work. So to center work, I go and I see that the H3 for work is inside the ID of work. So I can also do that. I can say work and say H3 and TextAlign. And I'm sure you are beginning to see how this is very repetitive, even though it's working. It's working, but it's repetitive, okay? And let me, just for good measure, let me do the same for the contact H3. And, I'm going to say TextAlign center as well. And if we scroll down, we will see that our contact me is centered. This is where classes come in, okay? If I add a class to these H3s, I don't have to do this. So why don't we do that? Why don't we add a class to the first H3, the my summary? We're going to say class, and we're going to call it section heading, okay? Because it's the heading of the section, okay? All right, so the section heading, and that same class, I'm going to apply it to the other H3s, okay? The work and the contact me, okay? All right, now in my CSS, I can replace all of that and I can just call my section heading class, and it's a class because of that dot at the start, and I can make that TextAlign center, okay? Now, if I delete all what I wrote before and save, we see that our section headings are still centered because now we have applied a class to them, okay? Good. I'm still working on my summary, okay? So with my summary, I think it's a little, this heading is a little close to the header at the top. So I want to put a margin between this section and the heading, okay? So this is my header over here, okay, my header element, and this is my main element here. So main is, containing everything else. So that's where I want to put my margin, okay? I want a margin between them, okay? So I come here and I define my main ID, okay? And I say margin. I'm going to give it a big margin. Let's give it 100 pixels, okay? And you see what has happened, okay? You have this big gap, right? Aha. And another thing that you see, which actually I wasn't expecting, is we now have, okay, so this margin has gone all around the main, okay? It's gone. If I wanted it only at the top, I would have to define the other. Remember, I told you the clockwise. I would have to define the right as 0, the bottom as 0, and the left as 0. But when you put only one number, one value with margin, it applies it to all 4 edges. And that's what happened. And so now there's this 100 pixel margin around my main, which I think actually looks pretty nice. I think it looks nice, okay? All right, but I think 100 for the side is a bit much and 100 for the bottom is a bit much. So I'm going to actually define each of the 4 dimensions. So I'm going to keep the top as 100 and I'm going to make the sides to be 50. Okay, the bottom, I think the bottom can stay as 100. No, let's make the bottom 50 as well. Okay, and the left 50. Okay, so you see what happened. So our top stayed the same, but you see now the content has stretched out a little bit because the margins on the sides and the bottom are not as large. Okay, now let's go back to our summary. I actually like how this is looking now. My summary is at the center, and this is my paragraph is not touching the edges like it was. So I'm happy with that. Okay, I think that the text is a little small. I would like my summary text to be a little larger. Okay, so inside my summary ID, I can target the P tag. Okay, all right, I hope you're not getting tired on me. Okay, so summary P, and I want my font size. I'm sure you've come across that in your study. Let's make it 18 pixels. Okay. Okay, I think it changed a little bit. I want it to be a little bigger, so let's make it 24. Ah, okay. I think that is very readable now. Okay, but now it now looks weird with my heading, right? It looks weird with my heading because now it looks bigger than my heading. Okay, so my section heading, I want it to be a little bigger than the text. Okay, so let's make my font size here. Let's make it 20. Okay, all right, that's a little better, but I still want my heading to be a little larger. So I'm going to override, even though it's an H3, I'm going to override the size. And I'm going to apply this to all the section headings. Okay, so I come to my section heading class and I add here, I say font size, and let's make it 22 pixels and see what that looks like. It's a little bigger. Let's make it 26 pixels. Okay. I like how that is looking now. Okay. All right. So that's my summary and I'm happy with it. Now you can see, you know, this work section seems to be a little close to the summary. Okay. So let's change that. So this is our work section here with ID work. So we're going to put a margin at the top just to give it a little space. Okay, so let's come down here and we say work and we want a margin. Now there is a property called margin top. Okay, and so if we say margin top, it's only going to apply this margin to the top edge. Okay, so let's make it 50 pixels. Okay, I don't think that's enough space. Let's make it 100. Okay. Aha, okay. I feel like now you can tell that there's a difference, okay, in the sections. Wouldn't it be nice if there was like a visual like separation between our sections, okay? In the HTML, you may have come across this. We can have the HR tag, okay? And the HR tag stands for horizontal rule, and that's in HTML. So you can see now I have that horizontal rule over there. Now, you know, the horizontal, it looks very close to, you know, my text here in my summary. And so I want to give my horizontal rule a margin on the top and a margin on the bottom so that wherever I put it, it's going to have that space between it and the section above and below. So let's go into our CSS and we are going to say HR because it's a tag, and we're going to give it a margin top of, let's give it 50 pixels and a margin bottom, okay, of also 50 pixels. Okay, so I save that and okay, you see that? You see how it shifted? Okay, it has a little space. I don't think it's enough space. I'm going to make it 100. Okay, I just want to feel like that there's like that space to let us know, okay, it's a different section. I think the HR is too long. By default, it takes up the whole width of its container, you know, but I think if it were about 75% of that, that would be good. So I can put here the width of my HR should be 75% of whatever space is on the screen. And so you see you see how it shrank. CSS is very powerful. It's very powerful. Okay, so now that I have that HR with the margin on the top and the bottom, I don't think I need this here anymore with the work margin top. So let me remove that. Okay. Aha. So I have accomplished that spacing I wanted with my HR, and I'm going to repeat that between work and contact. So let's go back to our HTML and we'll copy this HR tag and we are going to put it in between work and contact. And so if we scroll down, we should see that divider as well. Okay, we are making good progress. Let's continue. Now, this work section, I want them to be tiles next to each other, okay? So the way it is right now, I don't really like it, okay? So let's style that section. Hopefully Display Flex will will agree with us this time. Okay, so let's style our work section. So the first thing is these images are huge, okay? I don't like how big they are. So let's reduce their size, okay? Oh, I had said that I wanted to move this width to CSS for our header image. So let's do that, okay? We have our header image. Let's make the width in CSS 200 pixels, okay? So now we can take it out of our HTML. Okay, we can take out that attribute and you see nothing changed because now the CSS is doing it. Okay, all right, so our work section. So the first thing is in every work tile, the class, we want to target the image, okay, and make it a smaller size. So let's do that, okay? So we're going to come down here and we're going to say in the class work tile, every image, okay, you know, inside work tile, we want it to be a width of, let's say 300. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, it still feels a little big. Let's make it 125 and see what that looks like. Aha! I think that's a little better. Let's maybe make it to 150. Let's see. Okay, I think 150 looks good. It looks like a good size for a portfolio. Okay, all right. So now our images are smaller, but you can see they're all kind of still stacked, you know, together. Let us, you know, center all the content of our my work section. Okay, we want them to be in the center as opposed to on the left. Okay, so let's look at the HTML. We can see that we have this div. So remember when I told you that we're going to create an element and put all the tiles inside? That's why. So that, you know, with this work tiles ID, we can grab all our tiles and apply styling. Okay, all right, so we're going to use the work tiles and I'm going to put that above. Okay, and it's what was it, an ID, I believe. Okay, so work tiles, and we want them, I hope this works, we want them to be centered. Okay, all right. Ooh, but now we have this funny thing with our list. You see the dot is so far away. Okay, let's remove that for now. I might find another way to center them. Let's remove that for now. Okay, now each tile, you can see they are all stacked, you know, on top of each other, but I want them to be, you know, that is side by side. Okay, because I want to build a kind of grid. So we're going to use display flex for that. We're going to use flexbox for that. Okay, so let's go into our work tiles ID because we want to affect all the tiles inside. Okay, all right, so we're going to apply flexbox to the parent of our tiles. Okay, okay. Flexbox is very powerful. So you see how now everything is side by side, but it's all smushed together. So we need some margins, right? We need some margins between our tiles so that they're not all smushed together like that, okay? So we're coming now to work tile, and we have a class. So because we have a work tile class, whatever I put in here is going to apply to all the tiles. Okay. All right. So work tile, we want our margin. Now what do we want? We don't really care for the top, and okay, let's do all. Let's apply the margin everywhere. Okay, so all around the tile. Let's give it a margin of 50 pixels and see what happens. Okay. So you see how now each of these tiles has a margin of 50 around it. Okay, each of them have 50 around it, and so it has created this large space. I think it's a little too much. Let's make it 30. Okay. I think that's a little better. Okay, so each one has 30. So in between is now 60 because each one has 30. So in between total now is 60. But now you see how it's running off the page. I'll show you. Okay, you see how it has overflowed, the page. Now, the reason why it looks like that is because I have, made my browser to be half. Let me extend my browser and you will see that it actually does fill up, it fills up the whole page. Oh, this is funny. You see, when I made it big, I have to come. It's because I had it, on the right side. But you see now, this is funny. Oh, it would make sense to have this to be centered. Anyway, we'll come back to that. This is just, a demonstration. Okay, so let's make it half now. So, to stop that from happening, and this is important because you can imagine if you were looking at this on mobile, okay? If you were looking at this on mobile, you see, you would have to scroll all the way to the right. Okay, so to do that, we are going to cause the elements to wrap around. Okay, and that's one of the properties of Flexbox. So we are going to say flex wrap. Okay, and we're going to say wrap. Okay, so you see now the one that was overflowing, it wrapped around and it came, okay, like that. Okay, what else can I do? Can I justify content? Are you going to work for me this time? So now the justify content center. So now the group of tiles is now in the center. Okay, let's give our tiles like a nice border. I don't know if you've come across that in your studies. Okay, so let's give it a border. I think I would like a gray border. Okay, and I would like it to be about 2 pixels thick, and I want it to be solid. Okay. But you see what I did? I applied my border to the entire set of tiles when I actually want to apply to each individual tile. So I'm happy I made that mistake. Okay, so let's move that now from tiles to work tile. Okay, you see now every tile has this border. I don't know, that border, does it look, how does it look? Okay, well, I don't like the fact that it is a hard square, so sharp. So let's make the border 1 pixel because it looks a little, that looks a little better. And then let's soften those corners with a border radius of about, let's say 8 pixels. Okay. You see, it just gave it a little subtle, Now, I actually would prefer, something weird is happening, and it's happening because of the image. I'm going to give the image in the tile, I'm going to give it a margin because I don't want it to be right against the edge of my tile. Okay, so let's give the image a margin, and I just want the top and the 2 sides. So the top, let's give it 20 pixels, the right side 20 pixels, the bottom 0. I don't want any margin on the bottom, but the left side, and actually let's not do it as a margin on the image. Let's do it as because you see, another thing we notice here is you see how work description is right at the edge. We don't want that edge, let's have a padding inside our tile. Okay, so in the work tile class, let's give a padding, and that padding all around, let's see how 20 pixels looks. I like that. I like that. I like that. Okay. So these are our work tiles. Okay. This is my work tiles, showing what I do. Okay. Now, I would like the, I'm looking, let's see our HTML. Okay. I'm looking, you see how the scale is like indented. I think there's a way to, let me close these tabs. I think there's a way to shift it to to line up with, you see, the work description there. Let me see, let me search ULLI ULLI indent, remove indent, I think is what it's called. Okay, so remove indent, removing UL indentation. Okay, let's see what solution. Okay, so if I put a padding of 0 on the UL, okay, good. So let's see where our UL is. Our UL is inside the work tile class. Okay, so I can target it like that. So my work tile, okay, work tile, and then I have UL. Okay, so every UL, I want the padding to be 0 so that indentation goes away. Aha, okay. But now what has happened? It seems to have moved now all the way to the edge. What is going on? Let's look at our work tile. We have image, we have work description, but we had put, okay, yeah, but we had put a padding. This is weird. Okay. Okay, I see what is happening. When you remove the padding of an unordered list, it will move the actual text to where you want it to be, not the bullet. Okay, so I think there's also a way to remove the bullet, which is list style type none. Let's do that. Okay, so list style type, I can't type, none. Okay. Aha, so you see how it's nicely aligned. I just love how it's aligned. Okay, so let's leave that alone. I think we've done enough in our work section and it is looking nice. I like how it looks. You see, our portfolio is taking shape. Now, the contact me, I'm going to try and do some JavaScript here. Okay. All right. So the contact me, this our software engineer. Let's see, what did we, the summary P was font size 20. Okay, I also want this font here to also be font size 20. And so that font is down here. It is a P tag under the ID contact. So we can actually add that here. So contact P, okay? And that also makes, you see, it makes this, 20. Now, you see how, I think I would like it to be in the middle, okay? And I think this would also look good being in the middle as well. So let's add another CSS property, and we're going to say TextAlign, and we're going to say center, okay? And so that looks a little bit more centered. And of course, down here, we are very centered, okay? And I would also like to center my button, okay? Now, I don't know. I would like more space down here, but you know what? Let me just leave that alone for now. So I would like my button to also be centered. So let's go and see. Okay, so it's a button tag under contact. Okay, so we could, or because we have this whole contact section, why don't we just make everything centered in our contact ID, our contact div. Okay, so why don't we do that? So let's come down here and let's say contact, okay? And we want everything in contact to be centered, okay? Aha, you see? So now even our button is centered. And so because we are centering everything, we can actually remove this addition that we put here, okay? And now, if we think about it, if everything in contact is centered, maybe we want everything in summary to be centered as well. So instead of having TextAlign, I mean, we can leave it this way. I'm just saying that because we're centering everything in our sections, we could even just create a section. You see how CSS works? Okay, but let me not confuse everybody. So let's work on our contact section and let's implement a little bit of JavaScript. I think will be nice. Okay. So the JavaScript in a website is more of interactivity and taking actions, being able to do things. Okay. So if you think of a house, the HTML is the bricks, the cement, the wood, the piping. The CSS is the paint, the beautification fixtures, the colors, that's the CSS. Now, the JavaScript is the ability to open the door, okay? So you open the door to enter the house. The ability to open that door to enter is the JavaScript, okay? It's the interactivity, the action that you can take on the website, okay? So the JavaScript that we are going to implement now is so that when you click that button, it will open the email, the whatever email program is configured on that device. Okay, let's do it. Let's style our button first because it looks a little looks a little drab. So we're going to say contact button. Okay, let's style our button. Let's make it a little bigger. So we're going to increase the padding inside and that will make it bigger. Let's give it a padding of 30 pixels. Okay, it's a little bigger, that's a little much. Let's give it a padding on the top. Let's give it a padding of 20 on the top, and on the side we'll give it 24, and on the bottom we'll give it 20, and on the left we'll give it 24. Okay, I think that looks a little better. Okay, let's make the background. First of all, I don't want a border because the border will have a different color. So let's take away the border. Okay, so you can see that line that was around it. Let me raise this up a little bit. Let me, okay, just so you can see more clearly. Okay, all right, so you can see that gray line that was around the button is gone. Okay, now let's give it a background color of what now? Let's give it gold. Okay, that looks nice. Or you know what, let's make it the same green as our header. Okay, so a green button. I don't like the black on green, so let's change the color to white. Okay, and let's make the font size on the button a little bigger. Let's make it 18 pixels. And I just remembered now that we had wanted to change the size of our contact. We wanted to change the font size to 20 as well. So our contact our contact P tag, we wanted it to have a font size of 20 pixels as well. Okay. All right, let me, okay. Aha, okay, that looks better. I think that looks good. Okay, our button is a little close to the text there, so let's give it a margin top of let's see how 30 pixels looks. Okay, good. We have a little bit more space. All right, let's let's, those corners are looking, I don't know, just looking a little sharp. Let's give it a border radius of 10 pixels. That looks nice. Okay, so that's our button. Okay, that's our button. Now, you see how I'm, when I bring my cursor on the button, it stays as an arrow. And, part of user experience is, when you hover over a button, it changes to a pointer, so that indicates that this is something you can click. Okay, so let's add that. Okay, we do that by saying pointer. No. It's, what is it now? What is it now? I can't remember. CSS pointer. Cursor. CSS cursor property. Thank you. I couldn't remember. Okay, so the property name is cursor. Cursor. And the cursor that we want is a pointer. Okay, so what that does is when I hover, you see, it's an arrow now, but when I hover on my button, it changes to a pointing hand. Isn't that cool? Okay, all right. So JavaScript. Okay, JavaScript. Let's open our JavaScript file. Now, like I've said before, this is not for you to memorize. I'm just showing you how these things work together so you can build really cool websites. Okay, all right. Now, the first thing is if we write any JavaScript in here, but we haven't linked the JavaScript to our HTML, nothing will happen. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is right inside the closing body tag, we have to link our JavaScript. Okay, and we do that with the script tag, and I believe it is src, and then we specify our JavaScript file. Let me just make sure that I have done that well enough, because I don't memorize these things. Okay, HTML script tag. Okay, this is like embedded script. I'm not going to do that. We're actually going to link. We are going to link the. We're going to link script to HTML. Yes. Okay. So this is what we're looking for. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, it's not self-closing. Okay, so I have to close it with this. Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure I had the syntax correct. Okay. All right, so back to our portfolio. Okay, so now we have our JavaScript. Okay, so now what JavaScript wants to do is we want that when we click this button, it will open the email client that's default on that device so that you can send an email. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to grab this button in JavaScript. And to allow me to grab it, I'm going to give it an ID, and I'm going to call it contact button. Okay, my ID is contact button. Okay, now in JavaScript, we grab it by, I'm not going to go deep into it, but it is part of front end. Okay, I just want to show you how it works. I'm going to query my document, okay, my web page for that ID. And by querying for that ID, that lets me know I've grabbed the button. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to say const contact button. I'm creating a variable that is equal to that button. Okay, I'm going to say document get element by ID, and the ID name is contact button. Okay, now how can I test that I have gotten this? Okay, so I just want to do a quick test. Okay, I'm going to make something happen on the page when I click that button. Okay, now I'm going to when events happen on your page, like a click or a scroll, you can attach actions to those events. Okay, and the way you do that is you listen for the event, so that when the event happens, you now do the action. That's what I'm about to code now. Don't memorize it, just follow along, okay? So I'm going to add a listener to my button, okay? So what that means is listen for a particular event to happen on this button. And once it happens, do this, okay? So on my contact button, I'm going to add an event listener, okay? And this event listener is going to listen for a specific event, which is a click. There are so many different events. You can have scroll, you can have, highlights. There are many event types on a browser, but the one I care about is the click event, okay? So I'm going to listen for a click event. Now, when this click event happens, I want you to do something, okay? And the something I want to happen is I want to alert, don't memorize, okay? I want to alert to myself in the browser that contact button was clicked, okay? That's what I want to do, okay? So let's go and we'll refresh our page. Let's see what happens. If I click my button, I get the alert. Contact button was clicked. This tells me that my JavaScript file is hooked up correctly, okay? It tells me that my HTML has hooked up with the script JS file and it recognizes it, okay? All right, so now let us actually code. I hope I can remember how to do this. Let us actually code the event we actually want to happen, which is the, opening the mail client. Now, I'm going to search mail to on click because if I tell you I know how to do it, I don't. Okay. So this is trigger a mail to when it is clicked. Okay. Let's see what they are saying here. Okay. All right. Okay. So they are not doing it. Okay, window location. Okay, I think I can use that. Window location, mail to whatever. Okay, well, let's see if it works. If it doesn't work, okay. So I'm adding an event listener. There are many ways to do this. I'm just doing it this way. Somebody may watch this and say, "Oh, Arit, you got it wrong." Okay, I got it wrong. I'm doing this on the fly. I didn't plan this before I started the video. I'm doing it on the fly. And the goal is just to show how everything works. It's not to have a perfect application. Okay, so let's see. So don't memorize this. Forget about window location. Okay, the goal is just when we click the button, an email client opens. Okay, that's all we care about. Okay, so this is now this sentence here will open, hopefully will open our native email application, and it will show an email being sent to, and I want the email to be sent to me. So my email is, I'm going to put a mock email before people start emailing me. I'm going to say arit@mockemail.com. Okay. All right. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't work, well, sorry. Let's see if it works. Okay. So refresh our page. And when I click this button, it's taking me to Gmail. Yay! You see what happened? So it redirected, and my default email on my system is Gmail. So it redirected and it opened up a new message and it populated the to field to arit@mockemail.com. Okay, I guess you've seen my email now. Anyway, all right, so let's go back to our page. So that's it. That is it in a nutshell. I hope that was helpful. We have basically from scratch, without practicing beforehand, we have built a very simple portfolio website using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I hope that was helpful for you. I hope it was helpful. Like I said, it was just to show you how all the different moving parts work together so that when you're studying, you can use this visual representation to help you to understand exactly what it is you're reading, or to better understand. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please message me on Slack, ask in your channel, let your fellow channel mates also help you. You all are in this together. Keep your head down, study hard, and you will pass the exam. I'm rooting for you, I'm praying for you, and you will make it to the other side, and you will start your career as front-end engineers. So thank you for watching. All right, I'll see you on Slack.